So welcome everyone back to the final episode this year of the Tour de France Wheelie Good Podcast, where we review the entire tour and look at some of our predictions that we may or may not have gotten right and wrong, and also the final two stages of this year Tour de France, which ended in I'll be honest, the final stage, it surprised me in a good way.
Yeah, I was very happily surprised, but I am ever so slightly worried that it might become the norm.
Yeah.
I kind of hope that they interchange it with the typical normal sprint on Champs-Élysées just to give sprinters a chance. But in terms of entertainment value, it more than delivered in my opinion.
Yeah, I still feel it's sad that the sprinters don't have anything to look forward to at the end, which kind of sucks. But on paper and entertainment value, it is more entertaining. I'll give them that much at least.
Exactly. And the stage before that was won by Caden Groves in a quite fantastic way. He delivered a stunning attack where he put in about 150 watts, and Vandenbroek and Jake Stewart just decided to leave him, let him go. Don't bother. Both looked at each other. Groves rode away and said, "Thank you very much, lads," and took the stage win from the break on a day that not much really happened, apart from Jordan Gigat slipping into the top 10. Now, I don't want to say someone saw that coming, but someone saw that coming.
A certain someone did. I think we both predicted breakaway for this stage, right? If I'm not mistaken. No, the day before.
I believe we did, yes.
Yes. I didn't predict Groves, though, personally. But, slight detail.
No, yeah, it's Alpecin Deceuninck taking their third win was pretty crazy with 3 different riders and in 3 different scenarios as well. So obviously now we can sort of sit back and review the race as a whole. Stage 1 was obviously Philipsen in a sprint.
Yep.
Stage 2 was Van Der Poel in like a reduced group finish. And then they've now done Groves on his own on a solo ride from a breakaway. They've kind of completed every single facet of the tour. Right?
Yeah, I mean, considering what's happened to him, both Van der Poel and Philipsen going out, I feel that's very impressive tour from him, to be honest.
I certainly agree. So let's look back on the race as a whole then. And it began with plenty of drama. There was early incidents, there was plenty of fighting in the peloton, and in the end, a reduced group peeled away. And Jasper Philipsen took the first yellow jersey from the sprint, but it wasn't without a little bit of controversy. Of course, Benjamin Thomas and Mathieu Van Der Poel, it feels like years ago that they both took each other out on the...
Was that this year? No
on
way.
The second climb of this Tour de France. It feels like many, many moons ago now. But Philipsen in the yellow jersey. And was that an expected result? I'd say no.
No. I mean, both our predictions were Taylorson had Merlier and I had Milan for the first stage. So that one we didn't get right. But yeah, I didn't see that happen, to be honest. But it did happen. So I guess I'm very wrong.
Yeah, I mean, I think we underestimated Philipsen.
For sure.
Because the man's got 9 wins at the Tour de France and now 10 wins for a reason. And that reason is that he's a blooming good sprinter, I'll tell you that. But I was a little more successful in my second prediction. We both went for the cyclocross duo of Mathieu Van Der Poel and Wout Van Aert. And Alpecin Deceuninck doubled up on Boulogne-sur-Mer. Van Der Poel finishing best, just about ahead of Tadej Pogacar, who could not get out of the wheel of the Dutchman. Jonas Vingegaard third, and we were already seeing the GC competitors come to the fore.
Yeah, that stage was pretty gnarly at the end there. With the sprint, this time Van Der Poel matched the sprint perfectly, unlike a little later on in the tour, where he messed up.
But no, we saw some new names that were going to have an impact on this Tour de France in that leading group. And I think this was the first stage where we really saw who was up for it early on, including Oscar Onley in 6th, which I'm sure we will talk about much more later on. And Remco Evenepoel was in that front group too. Everybody was there, and the Tour proper was underway. Not until stage 3, though, which was another sprint, where Tim Merlier opened his account at the Tour, and it was another correct prediction from me. You stuck with Milan, but Merlier takes the win.
He did. I remember seeing that stage. I was thinking, yes, Milan, he's there. He's in a great position. Oh, what's that? Oh, okay. No, never mind. I guess I'll take second.
But the big news from that stage was the battle for the intermediate sprint. It was pan flat all day from Valenciennes to Dunkirk, and you saw Brian Coquard get involved in a little bit of a altercation with Lawrence Rex, get pushed across the road and into Jasper Philipsen, effectively ending his race with a broken collarbone. And I think a couple of broken ribs from what I remember. Yeah. But he's healing up fine right now. However, that's kind of scuppered Alpecin-Dekoning's sprint chances.
Yeah. Do you think he could have won more sprints in this year's Tour? Or do you think that would have been it regardless in terms of like stage ones?
Although I think he's a good sprinter and we've just been praising him after the first stage, I think that wasn't the best of the sprinters that he beat. Obviously, it was a reduced group because of being ripped apart in the crosswinds by the likes of Visma. So, in the end, neither Milan nor Tim Merlier were in that group, and the competition he beat was Biniam Girmay, Verden Skjold, and Anthony Turgis, which, in the nicest way possible, to those three guys, those three were not troubling the top of any sprint at the Tour other than this one. So I think Philipsen, you have to beat what's in front of you, I suppose, but I wouldn't have fancied his chances against both Merlier and Tim Milan.
Agree.
But that was carnage on stage 3 in the sprints, both at the intermediate sprint and at the finish line, and it set us up for what was a carnage-filled set of sprint stages. But then we went to the hills once more, because into Rouen and the first proper hill stage, I was expecting it to be the first day where the GC riders would come out to play. In the end, Mathieu Van Der Poel had a brief say, but Tadej Pogacar sprinted around the Dutchman to take the stage win, but not the yellow jersey, because Van Der Poel still had a bonus seconds advantage on Pogacar. This was the first stage where we saw Pogacar against Vingegaard there.
We did, and it seemed like a very even battle this early on. The type of accelerations that Jonas usually couldn't follow, he followed really well this time and also attacked himself. And at the end, he barely also beat Van Der Poel, who I think underestimated both of them a little bit. And I'm sad to say that once again, a certain someone got it right and a certain someone didn't. But Taylorson had Pogacar as his prediction. I had Matthias Skelmoes, who finished 9th. So he was in the top 10. That also gives me 1 point, I think, personally speaking.
Sure,
yes,
buddy.
The tour really kicked off this stage.
Yeah, and this was a breakout stage for a couple of riders. Obviously, Onley finishing in that front group again. That was him announcing his hopes for the Tour de France, I suppose, and Kevin Vauquelin in the top 10. Looking back with hindsight, this was the first stage where these guys really showed themselves on what was a tough stage. And Joao Almeida was still up there, and we saw Matteo Jorgensen being followed on a couple of attacks by Tadej Pogacar, and perhaps that was Visma Lease Bike looking at the dual leader, or perhaps not.
Yeah, I mean, when I saw it once again, because that was my prediction as well, I was like, yes, they're doing it. They're finally doing something, which turned out not to be very interesting at all later on in the Tour. But they tried, and I appreciate the effort, at least.
Yeah, it all looked a bit positive for Visma entering stage 5. And then the Tour changed completely over the course of 33 kilometres around Caen. And it was Remco Evenepoel that took the stage win, but Tadej Pogacar that drove both Visma Lease Bike riders into the ground. He finished second on the stage, 16 seconds down. And the story was Jonas Vingegaard already losing 1 minute and 5 seconds on Tadej Pogacar in a discipline that both of them were fairly matched on in sort of previous years and previous head-to-heads. This was the first big win for Pogacar.
Yeah, I don't think many people saw this coming. I think most saw it actually as an opportunity for Jonas to gain like a couple of seconds, maybe 2 or 3. potentially, but definitely not lose a minute. I don't think anyone has predicted that. If they did, they're lying. But yeah, a bad day this early on in the tour and this important of a stage. That's not what we need when you're Jonas Vingegaard against Pogacar. That is not what you need.
And that was the final stage, or was it, where Van Der Poel was in the yellow jersey? We'll find out later on. But you had Remco Evenepoel, so you had first pick, of course. I had Filippo Ganna, who didn't make it past halfway through the first stage. So that was unfortunate in my eyes. And Ineos already on the back foot. Speaking of Van Der Poel, though, he was out of the jersey, but I had him as a potential stage winner on stage 6. And I was very excited when I saw him in the breakaway with the likes of Simon Yates. It was a very elite group that went up the road today.
Oh yeah, a very elite group. I don't remember this stage too well. I remember someone, I guess Ben Healy ended up escaping, and they relied quite a lot on Van Der Poel to bridge the gap, or at least try to, and keep also the time away from Pogacar in terms of taking the yellow jersey back, which is probably one of the reasons why he didn't perform too well, because he had to use a bunch of energy that the others, trying to use him for that. But he ended up going back in yellow.
Yeah, I think he was probably a little bit more cooked than the rest of the breakaway, who obviously had this stage circled, whereas Van Der Poel was going all in on the previous 5 stages to try and keep the yellow jersey and ward off Pogacar's offensives.
Yep.
And in the end, the whole breakaway kind of relied on that. Ben Healy said, I'm going to go on my typical 40-kilometre solo that he's pulled off in the Giro before, and then he completed it in the Tour de France this year, taking his second ever Grand Tour win in style, I must say, holding off Quinn Simmons and Michael Storer in second and third. But Van Der Poel moved himself into the yellow jersey by a single second based on his final heroics, despite finishing lowest of the breakaway guys, up the final climb to hang on and take the yellow jersey once again.
And that was the question, whether Pogacar did it on purpose, because he wasn't attacking at the end, which clearly he could have been able to. He would have been able to. He was sort of just looking at Visma, looking at Jorgensen and Vingegaard, and then attacked at the very end. And did he have his eyes on it? Did his team tell him, if you finish at this time, you will lose the jersey for 1 second? I don't know, but I have my suspicions.
And those suspicions were very quickly left in the dust, because on stage 7, Tadej Pogacar retakes the jersey. He gave it to Mathieu Van Der Poel on a 24-hour loan, and then takes it back at the top of Mur de Bretagne with the stage win too, going clear with Jonas Vingegaard in the final couple hundred meters in the sprint, and holding off the rest of the GC competitors. But here was the first stage where we saw cracks from a couple of GC favourites. Enric Mas, after a good first week, lost 51 seconds to Tadej Pogacar. Primož Roglic, Carlos Rodriguez, Florian Lipovic, Kjell Moser lost 21 seconds as well on what should have been a fairly regulatory stage at Mur de Bretagne.
Yeah, but we saw the likes of Wout Van Aert once again, only losing a good 2 seconds. Staying ahead of all these competition of Johannessen, Vingegaard, Skjelmose, and so on. Aside from, I guess, Vingegaard and Pogacar, who were sort of out of the competition status. And Oscar only as well, Felix Gall, all following really well. Jorgensen also in front. It sort of shaped up the GC landscape quite early on, I think. And we both had predictions of the breakaway on the way here, which didn't happen. I had Lipovic from a breakaway, which I guess you can say he's not really close. And you had Tobias Nice, Thibaut Nice.
Yeah, I had Thibaut Nice, which is a fantastic pick at this Tour de France. Throughout the whole race, he's really been up there, and especially so on this particular stage, where he finished 94th. 9 minutes and 31 down. So I was a little bit worse than the Lipovic pick. I've got to say, I was a Nice believer. I've been swindled. But was it going to be a nice day for the sprinters on stage 8? Terrible link, but tenuous nonetheless. Jonathan Milan, who was in the green jersey, moved himself into the lead and took it away from Tadej Pogacar. And those two would start a serious battle for the green jersey until the end of this Tour de France. But Milan's stage win moved him into green for good, ahead of Wout Van Aert and Caden Groves, in a stage where Tim Merlier did not benefit after a late puncture.
Yeah, and this is where we both ended up not picking any gigantic sprinter favorites. Well, I picked Taylorson for this stage, who, of course, wasn't here anymore. And Taylorson picked the Lee. So the one stage where I don't pick Milan, of course, he wins. You know, I was assuming that would happen before the tour started, and it happened, and I'm pissed.
Yeah, I think we both went for different Belgian sprinters to the typical one, and I think Philipsen would have been a good shot here, but Jonathan Milan just had too much for everybody else, and that was the way Jonathan Milan would end up winning quite a lot of his stages, sort of getting rid of the serious competition and dealing with what he had in front of him. Because on stage 9, it was a chance at redemption for Tim Merlier, and he took it with both hands. It was a sprint of a huge group after a long breakaway by Jonas Vingegaard and Mathieu Van Der Poel, where the Dutchman nearly held off the peloton.
Nearly. I was rooting for him, to be honest. That was an amazing breakaway because no one else wanted to. They were like, screw it. Let's go up there, make the race ourselves. And they did. And I think I also said after the podcast, after that stage, that I gave huge props. And I still give huge props for that. It's ballsy to do on a stage where you could just sit back in the peloton, chill out, have a nice cool day. You go up there, trip 400 watts for like 4 hours. That's insane. But unfortunately, it didn't end up lasting. Tim Merlier with the win. Jonathan Van Milan in second, Dilly in third. And our predictions for that was Taylorson with, let me see, is it stage 9? It's stage 9. Taylorson with Philipsen. And your boy with Gordemai, who finished 6th. So, technically better than Taylor.
Yeah. But I am going to throw it back to you because this was the last day where, and I know you really enjoyed this moment and you really liked this guy being in this jersey. It was the final moment where we saw Polka Dot Tim Wellens.
Man, rest in peace. This man, he wanted it so bad. It was his life goal. I saw him shed a tear the moment he lost it, I'll be honest. But
Tadej Pogacar is a man who likes to share. I think was the quote. And share he did for the first 9 stages of this race. Meanwhile, on stage 10, it was a new wearer of the King of the Mountains jersey. It was Lenny Martinez who was involved in the breakaway, which ended up going the distance. But the winner of the stage was Simon Yates, who held off Team Arendsman after an early attack on the Mont d'Or climb. Meanwhile, Ben Healy, who was in the Mathieu Van Der Poel role on stage 6, where he could have ridden himself into the jersey, did just that, taking the yellow jersey by 29 seconds while finishing 3rd on the stage, which shows how good he was in this early part of the tour.
Oh yeah, Ben Healy has very easily climbed the ranks of my my current favorite cyclist. He's not at the top, obviously, but he's definitely getting up there. The way he rides, his style, his personality, everything. I love it. And this tour showed why he's one of the GOATs. Maybe not GOATs, but...
one of your GOATs.
Yes, personally GOATs.
Yeah. But on GC Watch, Enric Mas lost yet more time, and this was a day of struggle for the first time in this Tour de France for Kevin Vauquelin, who lost a little bit more time on Pogacar and Jonas Vingegaard, who had this weird scenario at the line where they both did not beat Lenny Martinez, despite Martinez being in the breakaway all day, going much slower than them at the climb, but they just sat on his wheel and did not move. And that is something that we ended up seeing in later mountain stages. But this was the first sign that it was a little bit of tension between these two. Yeah,
the first sign that it was just, they only had eyes for those two. There was no love triangle, it was those two and that's it. And yeah, I mean, throughout the tour, that was very obvious, especially later on as well. And
I think the way that these two guys looked at each other benefited the breakaway, because we saw a lot more breakaways going all the way, like on stage 11, from Toulouse to Toulouse, where Jonas Abrahamsen and Mauro Schmid, who were part of a 3-man initial breakaway, who broke away at the start of the day, were joined by Fred Wright and Mathieu Van and they held off one of the craziest chase groups I think I've ever seen. Mathieu Van Der Poel, Wout Van Aert, Arnaud Delis, Axel Laurence and Quinn Simmons. They held them all off and got to the finish. Abrahamsen outsprinted Schmid, and by the sounds of it, everybody was wanting to come to the line with poor old Mauro Schmid. They kind of believed that he didn't have the sprint. Yep. And in the end, he was quite close to Jonas Abrahamsen.
Yeah, I believe Abrahamsen did play it pretty tactically, though, letting Schmid take the final pull at the end. And then just sort of sitting his wheel, be like, nope, not pulling. And then sprinting out the wheel and getting a pretty decent, pretty good stage win. For Uno X, which I think is really impressive as well, that they have done so well in this year's Tour de France. I think Benji, he did like a tier list thing. I think he put him in S tier, if I'm not mistaken. Uno X.
Yeah, I think he put them in X. In S. If they were in X, I'd be a bit worried. He'd be wanting to kill them or something.
Yeah.
But I put Uno X in A when I did mine on the stream at the end of this tour. So yeah, they've had a fantastic tour, and that was, I think, the main sort of narrative of the day. Despite Tadej Pogacar going down in a crash, and everybody thought, including me, that this was a potential sign of weakness from Pogacar.
I did too. Like the not being fully aware of the circumstances and stuff. Maybe tired, but in the end, he wasn't really too tired, was he? Because stage number 12 was the Autocam stage, where I think most would agree that this year's tour got decided completely.
Indeed. So we had a breakaway that was ultimately not going to get there. Bruno Amarai was the best of those guys, who went clear of the likes of Michael Woods on the descent of the penultimate climb, and just thought, let me just ride it out. Meanwhile, behind him, something was brewing, and it was brewing in the flag of UAE, because Jonathan Narvaez set Pogacar up to absolutely explode on this climb, just lit it up from the foot. Adam Yates was wondering what was going on. He was an innocent bystander in this whole thing. He had a front row seat to the Tadej Pogacar offensive, and off Pogacar went. See you later, Jonas Vingegaard, and was never seen again. 2 minutes and 10 seconds.
I think I heard an interview afterwards that Tadej actually said that that's not what he meant when he told what's it called, Narvaez to, I think, speed up or something like that. Like, he misunderstood what he said, and so Narvaez ended up just doing a full-on sprint lead out, and which was, just to watch, was like, what is going on? Like, what? I've never seen anything like this before. But it ended up working, to be fair, whether he knew or not. Jonas with one of the worst days I think he's had in a very, very long time. I think the numbers speaks for themselves. And to have a bad day on a hot to come, on a 1v1 against Tadej Pogacar, spells disaster.
But it wasn't a disaster for you, who went for Pogacar as your stage winner on this stage, albeit you were probably supporting my pick, Jonas Vingegaard.
Yes.
And if anything, the previous two stages were a write-off as well, because I went Martinez from the breakaway. At least he got in. You went Felix Gall from the breakaway. In fairness, I thought it was a good pick at the time, and he's a good rider. He's kind of my Ben Healy, I think. I've come away from the tour being a Felix Gall fanboy. And neither of us got the stage 11 winner. We thought that was going to be a little bit more of a sprint. The profile was a lie. It was more of a hill stage.
It was a lie, yeah.
And it was a very big hill on our next stage. An individual time trial of 10.9 kilometers, but 8.1 of those were up the Peyregoud climb, Category 1 labelled, and Tadej Pogacar with a Category 1 performance, finishing P1.
Yep.
36 seconds clear of Jonas Vingegaard, and he's twisting the knife at this point already in this Tour.
We finally saw a couple of things. We saw Roglic, who has been invisible his entire Tour and seemed like he didn't want to be there at all, finally putting in a good performance. Actually, initially speaking, before we saw Vingegaard and Pogacar, it was an incredible performance compared to everyone else. And of course, the big failure of this year's Tour de France, Remco Evenepoel, finishing, I don't even know where he finished at this point. I can't even see him on the list.
He was 12th on this
12th,
stage.
yes, right. Losing a lot of time, and I think here mentally just gave up. Whatever something physical was wrong with him, I'm not aware because I haven't heard anything. It looked like something wrong with his bike or something, but I don't know. But considering next stage, what happened there, I think mentally this was just too much for him at this point.
Yeah, I went Pogacar for this time trial. You went Jonas Vingegaard. They locked out the top two, so I think that's a positive result for both of us, despite...
Yeah, I'll take it.
At the end of the day, you will realise, if you've not watched the preview podcast, the other person had to pick a different one, which is why we've gone different picks every single time.
Mm-hmm.
And it was a different scenario on stage 14, because once again, it went to a breakaway. And it was the first stage that we saw that Tiemann Arensman would take of this Tour de France. Little did he know he would repeat the feat again 5 stages later. But Tadej Pogacar and Jonas Vingegaard locked in battle once more. And this was a little bit of a comeback for Jonas Vingegaard after his demolition that he was delivered by Tadej Pogacar up Autocam.
Yeah, I think this is where you sort of think it isn't back on, but at least he can maybe compete. Like that the 2 previous bad stages were more of a fluke than what you could otherwise think it was. And he clearly has a higher level. But you also think at this point, it's probably a bit too late, even if he does. I think everyone was happy to see it though, see the battle and see that it's not completely one-sided, even though that it sort of was at the end of the day anyways. But we also saw the likes of Felix Gal, Lipwoods, and Oscar Onley, even Ben Healy as well, drawing away from some of the other competition in the GC classification.
Yeah, indeed so. And that meant your GC top 4 was Tadej Pogacar, Jonas Vingegaard in second, who had over 3 minutes on Florian Lipovic, and then Oscar Onley about 1.5 minutes behind the German. And that top 4 we would get to know a lot of, but you cannot fault Arensman for this win. Ineos Grenadiers had both him and Carlos Rodriguez in the breakaway, and also the team car ran over a spectator, which was questionable as well. But the big storyline of the day, as well as Arensman's win, was Remco Evenepoel's abandonment from this Tour de France. Now, you were on about how there might be something wrong with him. From what I've heard from various sources, he has not had a fantastic preparation for this Tour. I think Quickstep got it badly wrong in his, he came into the Tour severely underweight, but that was how they wanted him to be so he could climb. And in the end, that might be why he lost so much time in the time trial, because he wasn't at his usual. They really tried to push the boundaries, I think, with him this year to see what he could really achieve. And in the end, I think they went a little bit too far and kind of broke Remco Evenepoel slightly, both mentally and physically a bit. And from what I heard, they didn't want to risk him for the rest of this Tour because they had other objectives, notably the World Championships. So by the sounds of it, they kind of realised they got it wrong as well. But yeah, it wasn't too bad of a Tour de France for the team themselves, because they would end up getting a win 2 days later, but separating those 2 stages. Tim Wellens from the breakaway yet again into Carcassonne. We thought it would be a breakaway stage. I thought it would be a breakaway stage yesterday with Felix Gal. You went Vingegaard. But I went Matej Mohoric, who was actually in the move, in fairness, but was dropped very quickly before the final climb. You went for Nielsen Paulus, who again was in the breakaway. Arguably a couple of Ball Noah picks there, but not the ultimate winner. which was Tim Wellens.
Yeah, before this tour, I don't think I would have picked Tim Wellens for a stage 1 win. I really don't think so. Well, at least not a breakaway stage 1 this early on in the tour. Maybe a little bit late on, but yeah, that's pretty impressive. And then Campeonato obviously is back in second as well.
Yeah, UAE and Visma continue to be locked in battle, even when it's not Tadej Pogacar and Jonas Vingegaard. But Wellens timed his attack perfectly, basically did one attack all day, sat on the wheels and finessed perfectly. I think he could not have done a better strategic race. In the end, did one attack, and that attack was ultimately the one that won him the stage. Went clear for 40 kilometres, similar to Ben Healy, and nobody could match him. So Wellens took the stage win. The whole of the GC group finished on the same time, so no big losses there. However, you had a couple of jumpers in GC. Carlos Rodriguez, who was in the breakaway, moved above Ben Healy into 9th position, but the GC top 5 stayed the same. It wouldn't stay the same, though, on stage 16, because there was a brief bit of movement. Soudal Quickstep, though, we mentioned Remco Evenepoel going out of the race. Valentin Paripantra was given the free pass now, and Quickstep's domestiques were on job. They got 3 riders in the breakaway. The first one was Pascal Ainkorn, who did an underrated job to keep the move away. And then, possibly the pull of this Tour de France from Ilan van Wilder. It's probably between him and Narvaez on Autocam, to be honest with you. Coming from Narnia to make sure that the Valentin Paripantra, Ben Healy, Buitrago and Mas group got clear of the yellow jersey and Jonas Vingegaard. And Paripantra took a historic stage win for France on one of France's most known climbs. It was a fantastic day.
He did indeed. You just saw Van Wilder coming from out of nowhere, coming from the wild, I guess you could even say. And I was like, he's here. Since when? I did not realize he was in the breakaway to begin with. And he came out of nowhere, put in a high shift at the end, left it to a sprint. Ben Healy attacking. Ben Healy and Paripantra having attacked each other so many times before this even happened. That battle was epic. And then the final sprint, we see them both go over the climb. You see the camera angle. It's just, the shots are so good on moment. So they're so good. And Paripantra coming out on top just barely. Vingegaard and Tadej potentially could have caught them if they had worked together more, if Pogacar wanted to catch him. But they were both playing it tactically. And in the end, Tadej's acceleration at the end, after sitting in the wheel for so long as well, ended up giving him the slight edge over Vingegaard once again.
Yeah, this was once again Visma Lease bike tactically throwing as much as they could at the wall and seeing what would stick, because they had Benoit and Campeonato in the breakaway, satellite riders. I don't think Vingegaard could have played a better stage, really, and in the end, Pogacar still took 2 seconds, which I think was my point where I went, okay, Visma have tried throwing everything they've got at Tadej Pogacar here, and he's still taking time. This is Pogacar, barring incident or accident, sealing the Tour de France. And that meant he built up a 4-minute 15 advantage on Jonas Vingegaard just after the second rest day. Florian Lipovitz on 9 minutes and 3, who you had for this stage from the breakaway, interestingly. And I think that was a shout that many people would have had. You know, he'd have lost that much time to Roglic. But in the end, in GC, he was ahead. I had Jonas Vingegaard for the stage win. Only was 4th, 2 minutes behind Florian Lipovitz, with Primoz Roglic moving into the top 5, but sticking with the German over the top of the climb. And maybe that was a sign that Lipovitz was sole leader.
Yeah, that's a thing that a lot of it discussed so far. Like, should he have just gone and try and gain more time? Did he help a lot? Was Lewis always certain for the 3rd place? I think, I feel like it was a fair enough thing to do, to try and secure the 3rd place more, because Roglic is strong enough himself to figure things out himself, which is what he seems to prefer actually. Although later on in the tour that would change, but maybe not due to him being weak, maybe due to tactical misconception.
Stage 17 then, and the continuation of chaos on sprint stages. Possibly best summarised by this stage. We were entering Valence, and with 1 kilometre to go, there was a little bit of bumping and barging in the peloton. The wheel of Tobias Lund Andersen seemed like the wheel to be on, because Cyril Barth, Pavel Bittner, and Alexis Renard all were fighting for it at the same time. In the end, 3 does not go into 1. Cyril Barth goes down hard on the left-hand side of the road. Elsewhere on the right side, Biniam Diomaye clips someone's rear wheel in the crash and goes down. And basically the whole peloton, apart from 11 riders, is blocked up. So you have an 11-rider group in the final kilometre, and Jonathan Milan didn't even know this crash had happened, by the way. He moved up at just the right time. And Tim Merlier just about didn't. And that was the difference in the stage results, with Jonathan Milan out-sprinting Jordi Meus and Tobias Lund Andersen to win the stage in the green jersey in what was a very rainy day.
Yeah, it was. And I think when that initial group came through, you sort of knew what the result was going to be. There was no real surprise there. Although, once again, the one stage where I don't pick Jonathan Milan, he goes ahead and wins it. You love to see it. I picked them earlier. Taylorson picked Philipsen, who's obviously not in the Tour. So once again, a stage that isn't great for us in terms of the predictions.
Yeah, I think our predictions are tailing off after what was a positive first week. We're a bit of an Enric Mas of predictions. But stage 18, the predictions would continue to not go our way, because we thought this would be a GC battle on Col de la Loze, and in the end we did see one. But Ben O'Connor took the stage win with a very well-timed attack, and this was the Visma Lease by Hail Mary, I think. This was them going all in, shoving the chips on the table, and just betting everything they've got. And in the end, Tadej Pogacar once again has the beating of Jonas Vingegaard. Yeah.
There was a lot of discussion whether the tactic they did at the bottom of Col de la Loze was the right one, where Jorgensen followed the attack of Ben O'Connor, and who was it, Alvaro Rubio, who also attacked?
Yep.
He followed them, left Jonas alone, which then in turn had Jonas and Pogacar and Roglic wait for the group behind, which had people like Yates and Tobias Janssen and Kuss and so on back there waiting. And the question is, if they should have kept the pace up with Jorgensen in that group, not allowed the group behind to catch up, and just try a Hail Mary on the Col de la Loze, Vingegaard just keeps attacking, trying to get rid of Pogacar somehow, and just keeping the pressure on, or if it was the right choice to play it safe and wait for the group behind and potentially try and beat Pogacar there, even though at that point you're more so counting on beating him in a fair fight. Whereas if they had kept the pressure up, of course, Pogacar being alone in the group and Jorgensen controlling the pace, it's a bit easier to keep the pressure in terms of both physically, but also mentally and nutrition and so on and so forth. That might give them a slight advantage, but as soon as the group catches up behind, it's more of an evil playing ground. And at that point, when I saw that happen, I do feel like they played it safe, but if they wanted to go for the GC, that was the wrong move, I think.
Yeah, I think hindsight's a wonderful thing and all of that. But at the time, Visma Lease Bike had 2-on-1 with Tadej Pogacar, and actually behind them, UAE Team Emirates had one more rider than Visma Lease Bike. So in the end, by waiting for them, they made it a fair fight, with Matteo Jorgensen having cooked himself on the previous climb. So he was kind of not applicable to use on the Col de la Loze. And we ended up seeing that with him going into the move and not really being able to offer anything to Jonas Vingegaard. I think they should have just committed. There was that slight lull where you saw attacks from Lipovitz, who ended up kind of getting this stage wrong, despite what was a good move initially. But you had Vingegaard following the likes of Felix Gall, and those accelerations did not do him any good, I think. So, Matteo Jorgensen to just lock the race off before Col de la Loze would have been perfect for Visma Lease Bike, but in the end, him following Ben O'Connor's attack was perfect for the Australian, who not only won the stage but shifted himself into the top 10 of the general classification late on. And he was a guy that had a really up and down Tour de France, I think. Crashed on stage 1 after getting into the right split. He was obviously Jaco Alula's GC guy entering this tour. And then the crash kind of pummeled him out of GC. And he said, my knee still kills, even on the climb. My knee still hurts badly. But seemingly I can ride on it, so I can just continue. And he worms his way into the top 10 and takes a stage win as well, which is all you could really ask for, I think, for Jaco Alula's main climber.
Yeah, I think the third week he showed some of his capabilities that we all know he has, that he couldn't really show much of beforehand as well, also due to the crash. But third week, Ben O'Connor, not to be messed with, we all know that by now.
Yeah, and I went for Tadej Pogacar, you went for Jonas Vingegaard, and it was the same story for both of us on stage 19.
Yeah.
Vingegaard and Pogacar predictions, and Vingegaard and Pogacar finishing second and third. But this time, swapped around, and Thymen Arensman was the beneficiary of the day on a shortened stage to La Plana. We saw Primož Roglic get in the breakaway for a second time. He was also in the break on the Col de la Loze stage, but UAE team members seemingly wanted this one from the start, but in the end only came away with third.
Yeah, they did. And here's the question is if Pogacar had the legs or didn't have the legs or just didn't have the mentality to really want to go for it. I think we've discussed that quite a bit as well, and it might be a mix of both, and him also being ill. But Vingegaard finally, for the first time in over a year, finishing above Tadej Pogacar. I think we can all celebrate that as a good thing.
Yeah, Jonas Vingegaard wearing the KOM jersey on behalf of Pogacar, and I think you started to see the cracks mentally show on the previous stage for Pogacar, and the sort of tiredness began to really rear its head with Pogacar, because he was starting to say in interviews and sort of not look his bubbly self. And I think this stage in particular is the one that sticks most with me in terms of like Pogacar was done with this tour now and just wanted it to be over, and I think was starting to say that publicly in the interviews now. And everybody started to wonder like what was going on with the usual Tadej. I think it's just like him getting older and him getting a bit more wise and more tactically astute, and him not being as offensive, which is not a great thing, in terms of entertainment. But it's going to win him more Tour de France's, and it's going to make him a more efficient rider.
Yeah, for sure. I think there was a quote on a video, I didn't actually watch the full interview, about Tadej saying that burnout can happen to what's it called, athletes as well, which could also definitely be part of it. I mean, he's been competing so much this year, like all the classics as well, Dauphiné, and now the Tour as well. He's basically hadn't really had a big break to not physically, I think it's more so mentally, with all the interviews and people and so on and so forth. I think he really has reached the point where it's like, okay, mentally need a break, need to get away from people, to be fair.
Yeah, and I think it's a super interesting narrative, I think, of this tour that has continued on, and it's something that I was thinking of talking about at the end, but now we're on the subject. Like, the guy has been he joined UAE Team Emirates in 2019, right? It was his first big team after jumping up from continental level in Slovenia, and it was his move up to World Tour, and immediately, age 19 and 20, he is leader at the Vuelta a España. He was, top 10ing stages on his first race at the Tour Down Under, and was, won the Volta Algarve in his second race. And then heads to the likes of Liège-Bastogne-Liège, Flèche Wallonne, Amstel Gold. He's been thrown in to the big time literally immediately. Like, he's had no working as a domestique for other people. He's had none of the stage hunting even. He's just been a GC rider from day one. And I think it's really starting to wear at this point. I mean, you look through his results in his first season, winner at the Volta al Garve in the GC, then went to Strade Bianche, then was 6th in the Tour of the Basque Country, then did Amstel Gold, Flèche and Liège, then won the Tour of California, which was a World Tour race, then was 4th in the Tour of Slovenia, and then was 3rd at the Vuelta a España. It's like the guy has not stopped for 6 years now, just being at the top of races, and has never had the opportunity. And I think it really showed with the Tim Wellens interview, not necessarily interviewing Tim Wellens, but interviewing Pogacar about the Wellens stage win on stage 15, where he said he enjoyed that more than any of the stage wins he had on the Tour. And I think for somebody who hadn't ever been a teammate and was always the leader, I think he found some enjoyment in that. And I think that was what opened the door to him for being a little more like, okay, I am starting to feel a bit burnt out from my leadership roles. But yeah, I think Pogacar's whole career has kind of culminated in this moment.
Yeah, I agree. Do you think that this might play into the role of him maybe not competing in the Vuelta this year?
He said he'd look at the races he has after the Tour, and he's initially down for the Vuelta and Lombardia. Does he want to do yet another Grand Tour? Because if you're getting Grand Tour burnout, and the Vuelta is notoriously the hardest of the 3 Grand Tours, because not only do they have the hardest stages, but you've got riders that are racing for a contract. You know, it's August, it's late in the season, and the general tension, I guess, in the peloton, it's high in the Tour. It's going to be high at the Vuelta as well. Obviously, it's not the biggest race in the world that the Tour is, but you've got that tension of, like, I need a contract here. I'm going to take more risks from some of the lower order riders. Right. And it's just a lot of mental stress. So if it's that or the World Championships, you'd go for the World Championships all day, I think, if you're Tadej Pogacar.
Yeah, I agree. 100% agree.
So that was stage 19, and that was the big Pogacar conversation.
Yep.
But he let the breakaway have the conversation on stage 20, and in the end it was Caden Groves who said, "Hello everyone," and got no response whatsoever, because Van den Broek and Jake Stewart left the wheel of Caden Groves. If I'm Jake Stewart, I would be punching every single wall in the Israel Premier Tech team bus after the stage.
Yep, I agree.
It was a hilarious day. Groves got away in a breakaway group that was cooperating fairly well, apart from Wellens and Jorgensen, who were in their own little mental battle again between Visma and UAE. But the rest of the breakaway contributed okay. Jordan Jagat being in there was very much irking many of the breakaway group, which kind of got in the way of a couple of relays. But eventually they clubbed together and pulled through. And then there was the big crash of Romain Gregoire and Ivan Romeo on the corner. It was, again, Jake Stewart's interview afterwards was like, it was very telling because, like, you could tell, he was crying in the bus because his eyes were all bloodshot and red. So he was obviously, like, angry with himself and, his performance and whatever. But he was also very, like, frank in what he said. Excuse the pun, because he was with Frank Van den Broek. But no, he was like, honestly, I don't know what those two guys were doing going into a corner that quick in the wet. Like, it was destined to happen. And Gregoire, in fairness, with a cut-up jersey, finishes 5th. But Van den Broek, do you think he could have won if he'd have stuck with the wheel? Because he was clearly the second strongest by finishing 2nd on the day.
Yeah, I think it's a very real possibility, honestly, that he at least could have given a very close battle. But yeah, it's just awful unfortunate, really, with all the rain and stuff like that as well.
Yeah, I think it's a good thing that he's 24 because, like, already last year he finished 2nd, of course, on that first stage to Romain Bardet. And, like, if this was a sort of 28, 29-year-old, you'd be going, ooh, that was his 2nd opportunity to win a stage at the Tour de France, and he's kind of thrown it, and will he be ruining that at the end of his career? I think he can still win at the Tour de France in his career. He's clearly a strong rider and can get in the right breakaways, so I'd have him down as a Tour de France stage winner at some point in his career.
Yeah, agree. But we didn't have him down before this all went down. I had chosen Skelmos, who of course went out back the same stage as Remco went out.
Yes,
so he
crashing into a road sign.
Yeah. So, and I don't know if you've heard, but Mads Pedersen's called him a dumbass for crashing on his own.
Friendly fire.
Yeah, he was like, what kind of stupid dude is crashing alone? Pretty much about that. But yeah. And you had Fred Wright, who also was not part of that breakaway. So, another one for the books of not predicting right, but, you know.
But can we finish with a flourish? Certainly one of us did. And the man who did finish with a flourish, after being fairly quiet and reserved throughout this tour, I mean, he was second on stage 8 and got himself in a couple of breakaways that ended up going the distance. But Van Aert had a very quiet tour by his standards until stage 21, where he got very, very loud indeed on the Montmartre climb. And is the first rider at this Tour de France to, I'd say, properly drop Tadej Pogacar from the wheel.
Yeah, because it wasn't just like he's got like a little gap. No. He properly dropped in. He followed. It's the only one, Tadej Pogacar's attack, and then countered as well afterwards, knowing he still had more in the tank. And as to begin with, I was like, okay, interesting. Like he still has the legs clearly. And slowly as he kept going and Tadej kept falling back, you sort of realized, this might be a stage winner move here. And it indeed ended up being just so.
Indeed. I rated stage 20 as 7.5, just in terms of like entertainment value from the breakaway. This has got to be one of the highest scoring stages at this Tour de France, because although they had all the procession stuff and typical usual Paris hijinks at the start of the race, them neutralising the race and the GC times before Montmartre, I think gave Tadej Pogacar the keys to give this a try. And initially it was Julien Alaphilippe that went, but Pogacar attacked every single climb. Interestingly enough, on the stage itself, Pogacar took the 2 King of the Mountains points at the top of the first 2 Montmartre climbs, and it was only Van Aert's attack that pulled him away on the final Montmartre ascent. So Pogacar was really up for this stage, and in the end he got away in a group of Ballerini, Jorgensen, Trentin and De Lee. De Lee was distanced though and replaced by Matej Mohoric, who absolutely sent it down the descent. I think he said in an interview like, I didn't care whether I was coming home for dinner or I was coming straight to the hospital, which is like Hooper move. I mean, fair play.
Very valid. It didn't look like it.
Yeah, he was taking risks on the wet descent and plenty of them, and ended up getting in the group and taking third, finishing behind Davide Ballerini in the sprint, who took Astana's best result of second at this Tour de France. So Astana go winless, along with plenty of other teams. I think it was 14 teams that have not won at this Tour de France.
Yeah, a lot of teams not won. I think,
but you did win.
I did win.
Wout Van Aert.
I picked Wout Van Aert. I said it beforehand. I don't know how I said it, but I think something along the lines of he would attack on the final climb, which, I mean, he did. So, but I think Jorgensen might have burned some of Pogacar's matches earlier before the climb when he kept attacking, Tadej having to keep closing the gap, which I don't know would have made the result different, because regardless, Pogacar would have to try and go fast down the descent, which I don't think he was willing to do if he wanted to go solo. So even if Jorgensen hadn't done the thing, kept attacking and try and burn the matches of Pogacar, I think it still would end up pretty similarly, or at least Pogacar wouldn't have won, I don't think, because I don't think he's beating Wout Van Aert in the sprint if they go to the line, just those two.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
What do you think of the stage, though, generally? Because there was a lot of talk about how this was going to be unsafe, and I think it still has the capability to be.
Yeah.
The reason why they neutralised it was because of the rain. And I'm a little bit concerned that if they don't neutralise it next year, if they do the same thing, it might just be pure chaos with every GC contender. You know, you saw Jonas Vingegaard cross that line and do a pull for Wout Van Aert and then just call it quits. He was, I think he even said in the post-race interview of Stage 20, I'm just going sightseeing around Paris, to be honest with you. Because, like, I'm not getting involved whatsoever with the stage.
Yeah.
And I wouldn't, I am a bit concerned that if, you know, Pogacar's not in his usual attacking form and is not turning up at next year's tour, and they keep, like, everything the same, and don't neutralise it, it's going to be a lot of riders going into a very tight corner, and at the end of the day, that is not going to work.
Yeah, I think that was our main problem with this stage was the corner and the battle for GC and positioning and stuff. I think they have to keep neutralizing at this point. They've seen it works, and I think they just have to say that if that's how we do it, that's how we have to do it. Even if there's no rain. I think this year, aside from the fact that they could have not neutralized it, we got the most dangerous, quote unquote, type of this stage we could have gotten with all the weather and stuff. They've seen it can work. And I think, like I said, changing something that works is just a bad idea. Because initially, on the final stage of the tour, no one's meant to, move up in the GC, really. That's just kind of how it is. And I think it would make sense to keep it this way. If they do that, to go ahead with it. And I think they will for next year. I hope they don't change it, because that could, be horrible, I'll be honest.
Interestingly enough, though, because Florian Lipovitz was in the breakaway when this stage was done, he took 9 seconds on Tadej Pogacar. So, I mean, there is still if the gaps are very close, you could still make a change, and you could have, I guess, 2 battles at once, one battle for the GC riders, and then let the guys go for the stage. I think it really worked. But do I want to see it every year? I don't think so. Wout Van Aert winning solo was, it was a great stage, but you kind of expected. I went into it thinking, oh, it's Champs-Élysées, we're going to get a sprint between 2 people. And kind of knowing who won for the final 5 kilometers was a little bit anticlimactic.
Yeah.
But it certainly worked, and it was one of the best stages of this tour. I'd probably give it a 9.5. Just because there is room for improvement. There always is, but it delivered, and I think probably more if you look back at any of our stage ratings, this is going to be the highest scoring one of the lot. Yeah,
I think so, and I think with valid reason as well.
But were we high scoring on the bingo cards? Now that is the most important thing.
Eesh.
For clarity, because I've got them here, I went for Tadej Pogacar to win this Tour de France. In the end, I come away happy. Jonas Vingegaard to finish second, and Remco Evenepoel to take 3rd place and the white jersey. Pogacar, I had not to take the KOM jersey, I had Martinez. And then the green jersey I thought was going to go to Merlier, but in the end went to Jonathan Milan. So Milan takes green, Pogacar takes KOM, Florian Lipovitz in the white jersey in 3rd place of this tour, and Tadej Pogacar winning the race overall.
Oh yeah, I think I'm happy with my prediction. I think we get equal points considering you said Pogacar, Vingegaard and Remco top 3, and I said Vingegaard, Pogacar and Lipovitz. So I didn't get the first and second. It should be switched around, but I got Lipovitz in 3rd and in the white jersey, and I take that as a good prediction for sure. And also Milan for the green, also had that. However, I had Felix Gall for the Pogacar jersey, who did not get it, unfortunately.
Indeed. But did you get anything on your bingo cards? These were not fantastic last time.
I'm going to just go through them real quick and see. We got Roglic crashing twice. Didn't crash once.
Yeah, great performance from
That's
Roglic.
Crazy. Remco Evenepoel to wear the yellow jersey at any point. Didn't happen. Biniam Girmay to win a stage. Close, but didn't happen. A GC favorite has a mechanical on the stage 5 time trial? I don't think so.
You're 0 for 4 right now.
Fan incident on Moment 2. I don't think Jorgensen wins. Uno X gets 2 or more stage wins. They only got 1, right?
I'd have let you have Uno X gets 1, man.
Oh, no, it was so close.
You got too greedy.
Wout Van Aert Domestique Masterclass.
I mean, yeah, this is shocking.
A final one. Philipsen gets a yellow card.
He got someone a yellow card, but it wasn't himself.
I feel like I'll take that one.
Half a point.
Let's go.
So
more than
for
last
me,
year.
Yeah, more than last year. I think for both of us combined, more than last year, half a point. But for me, I had 2 GC contenders out in the first week. I don't think that happened, to be honest with you. Elsewhere on my card.
Unless you say Remco and Skilmore, if that counts.
I was thinking more like Crash Out, so I'm not giving myself that.
Okay.
What I had, though, was Total Energy to have a higher finish than Ineos.
Oh.
Now, initially my plan was stages, but I think I'm going to take half a point for this, because in the general classification, Jordan Jegat finishes 10th overall, and Tiemann Arensman is the highest Ineos Grenadiers rider at 12th. Yeah. So I'm going to get half a point for that. I'm not going to be too harsh on myself. I think that's a valid half point.
True.
I had Mathieu Van Der Poel to spend a week in the yellow jersey. Now, this almost came to fruition. He spent 5 days and then an extra day. So he got 6 out of his 7. In the end, I can't have that, I'm afraid. Nope. I also had him to hold it after the time trial, which he very clearly didn't. I had breakaway win in Paris. Now, I think I can give myself that. Because solo finish, no sprint. I'm going to take that one.
Fair.
I think I'm on 1.5.
Yeah.
So I'm not doing too badly so far.
Yeah.
Movistar stage win. Now, this is where it starts to go.
This is where it goes bad.
But I think this is entertaining, and I'm glad they've not won, because next year, the Tour de France starts in Spain.
Oh, God.
And Movistar are going to be hungry. They are going to be starving. Because it will be, let me do the quick maths on this.
Oh, God.
It will be almost 2,500 days. I think over 2,500 days since Movistar last won a stage at the Tour de France when they get to the Tour next year. So Quintana on stage 18 of the 2019 Tour de France was the last Movistar stage win that we saw. So they're going to go into Spain and they are going to be ravenous.
They won't finish in the top 10. That's really...
I had the big 3 to take all 4 jerseys. Ooh. I had Pogacar and Vingegaard to take the King of the Mountains, Pogacar to take the sprint, and Remco to take the white jersey. So that is not quite there. Pogacar taking the sprint didn't happen either, even though he did come close, finishing second in that classification. But I'm proud of these final, 2 of my final 3.
Yeah.
Sprint stages will be more exciting than mountain stages this year. In brackets, pure carnage, Astana and Israel sprinting with 2 to 3 guys, GC competitors trying to stay out of trouble, Milan versus Merlia. Brackets. I love the fact that I predicted this. Yes. And in the end, it was a wild guess. But it's ended up probably being the best prediction of this bingo card.
For sure.
It was carnage in the sprint stages. And in all honesty, bar Otakam, the mountain stages didn't really deliver in terms of GC action. I've got to be honest.
Yeah, they just weren't. They weren't up to the level they should have been. It was just a 2-man race with one of them not really caring too much and the others just not being able to keep up. So yeah, the flat stages definitely were the highest heights of this year's tour.
So then we move to my next prediction, which is the one that I'm not so pleased with.
Oh.
Cofidis are the nearly men of this Tour de France and taking 3 top 3s but not winning a stage. They didn't win a stage,
No.
but they ended up being nowhere near. They weren't even nearly men. They were just nowhere near men. So I'm not taking that, which means I'm still on 2.5.
Oh, here we go.
Last one.
Yep.
Oscar Onley
Oh.
accidentally ends in the top 5. Thank you very much. He didn't do it accidentally. He did it very much deservedly. But Oscar Onley top 5, I don't think anybody on this earth had that to happen. Let alone like comfortably in the top 5 by like 8 minutes as well.
Yes.
What a performance from Mr. Onley. And I think we can group Lipovitz into this category as well of like overperformers.
For sure. Yeah, I've completely forgot you had that, man. Oh, big pig, huge pig. I don't think you can.
Never in any doubt.
I don't think you're gonna perform better than this next tour. I think this is the peak in the bingo card.
I'm retiring here, ladies and gentlemen. This is the official end of the Wheelie Good
Retire
Podcast.
at the peak.
But no, what are your like overarching thoughts of this tour?
It's that Vingegaard can't compete with Pogacar. And hopefully Pogacar won't be in the Vuelta. Hopefully he'll take a break for like a year so Vingegaard can win another tour. No, I don't know. It's just the overall thought is that they're on a different level to begin with, and Pogacar's on a different level from Vingegaard as well. So in terms of future GC battles, something's really gotta change, like something drastic, like Remco joining Red Bull, but at the same time, they're gonna try a triple leader if they have all 3 next year. I don't know if he'll do much. Maybe the first couple of stages, but then eventually when it comes to the mountains, the usual stuff happens. So I think future GC battles, whenever Pogacar is involved, won't be nearly as entertaining. Even a bit with Vingegaard as well, but if he's up against a 3-man super squad of those 3, then maybe they can do something with only him. Apart from that, I think it's good to see Lipovitz, Oscar Onley as well, performing really, really well. And the sprinters as well battle with Milan and earlier. Not being too close either to the others, mostly just being those 2. Maybe it's just a good rivalry. Who knows? That would be nice if you could have a sprinter rivalry like that. I think this year was a bit of a letdown for me personally. I am a Vingegaard fan, so it makes sense. But I was hoping for a little more action, which maybe we'll get next year. I don't know. But I think overall, I would give the tour I think if last year was better in my opinion. So if I can give it like a 7, probably is about right.
I would give it the same score.
Yeah.
And I like this tour for me has been like, if you watch it stage by stage, it's been a really good race. Like the individual stages have been great. But I'm also watching the 2011 F1 season at the moment, which is considered by F1 fans and general fans of the sport as a bit of a dull year. But every race I've watched so far, bar a couple, have been really good races and competitive, but there's not been a championship battle.
Right.
And people will look back at this tour, I think, in 10 years or however long. They'll look back at the 2025 Tour de France and see it as worse than it actually was, if you know what I mean, in terms of entertainment value, because there was no GC battle there. Now, is that a Pogacar problem? I don't think so. If Pogacar's not at this race, I think Vingegaard wins by 8 minutes and Visma by take 6 stages of this race. So if Pogacar's not at this race, then Vingegaard, I think, cleans out, even if with Remco there, I think. So I don't think it's a Pogacar problem necessarily, but I do agree with you that Pogacar's just moved himself into a different tier this year to Jonas Vingegaard when it comes to climbing form. Any other reasons? I think we're starting to see the return of the breakaway.
Yeah.
Now that Pogacar's being a little less cannibalistic in his attitudes. Now, whether this is a one-off or whether this is a new Pogacar that we're seeing, I kind of want this to be the same way because it's giving other riders a chance. We've seen the likes of Ben Healy take the yellow jersey, Mathieu Van Der Poel in yellow for a while as well. And it's just fun to see different guys at the front and mixing it, having different objectives. And I think you'll start to see teams return to not sort of riding for GC with like we've seen with Kevin Vauquelin this year. He could have gone for stages, but in the end he rode for the general classification and gets a respectable 7th. But now I think that the smaller teams have seen that like stages are open, especially in the mountains. They're going to go for it with a little more gusto. And I think that is something that I'm going to enjoy. So for the lack of GC action, I think there's an opening there that the smaller teams could exploit to make the racing more exciting. But yeah, people will look back on this tour, I think, and not see it as the most interesting or fascinating race because there was no battle. And I think that's a bit of a disrespect to the likes of the Jonas Abrahamsen stage, which was incredibly fun, the Champs-Élysées stage. But yeah, if you've got no GC battle, then you've got no tour, really.
Yeah, I agree.
Which is why I give it a 7.
That makes sense. Makes perfect sense.
And with that profound comment, I think it's a good choice to end the pod here.
Yep.
I will end it on a final question, though. Pogacar to the Vuelta, yes or no?
I don't think so. I say no.
I say no as well, which opens it up to Jonas Vingegaard, who is on the start list for Visma Lease Bike. And he'll be facing off, if this start list is to be believed that I'm scrolling through right now on Pro Cycling Stats.
Yeah.
He'll be up against the likes of Joao Almeida, Jai Hindley and Alexander Vlasov for Red Bull Bora.
Okay.
Enric Mas, who's always good at the Vuelta for Movistar. Bernal back at a Grand Tour for Ineos. Gaudu here after missing the Tour de France for Groupama FDJ. Antonio Tiberi, who had a good Giro d'Italia. And Poles and Fortunato for Astana, with Richard Carapaz, leader for EF Easy Post, and Felix Gal there too for Decathlon. But all of those names are not going to be a patch on Jonas Vingegaard, I'm afraid. If he goes to the Vuelta alone, we'll see how Pogacar forms if he does go there, but I don't see it happening.
Yeah, same. But we will see when the time comes. Hopefully you enjoyed this year's a really good podcast where we covered the Tour de France. We will maybe to a degree be back with the Vuelta. We will see. I am on vacation there for a bit, so a bit of controversy there. But if not, we'll definitely be back for next year's tour, where we'll be discussing an insane tour. Vingegaard wins the Tour de France once again. The dream is alive.
The dream is not alive for the British broadcasters. I might not be able to even watch it. I'm just going to be guessing what's happened. I'm going to read the results page and go, okay, sure.
Yeah, we'll see how it all goes down then. But hope you enjoyed this year's Really Good Podcast, and we'll see you all next time. Take care.